The Vote of Extinction. The Great Assembly Hall floated in the void between star systems, a monument to galactic cooperation that had stood for 5,000 years. Inside its crystalline walls, representatives from 74 civilizations gathered for a session that would determine the fate of an entire species. The chamber was vast, with seating arranged in ascending circles that rose toward a domed ceiling, displaying the swirling colors of nearby nebulae. Each species had their own environmental pod, customized to their biological needs. Some breathed methane, others required intense radiation, and a few existed as energy patterns rather than physical forms. Commander Rachel Morrison sat in Earth's modest delegation pod, studying the faces and forms around her. She had served as humanity's voice in the Assembly for 4 years, navigating the complex politics of a galaxy where humans were still considered newcomers. At 42 years old, she had gray threading through her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of too many late nights reviewing treaties and trade agreements. Today, those treaties and agreements seemed trivial compared to what was about to happen. At the center of the chamber stood Ambassador Kelvin of the Valar, a species humanity had met only twice before. The Valar were tall and slender, with skin that shifted between pale blue and silver, depending on their emotional state. They had 4 arms, large eyes that saw into the ultraviolet spectrum, and a culture built around music and mathematics. Their civilization was young by galactic standards, only 800 years into spaceflight, but they had contributed beautiful art and elegant solutions to physics problems that had stumped older races. Right now, Kelvin's skin was flickering rapidly between colors, a sign of extreme distress that even Rachel could recognize. He stood alone in the speaking circle, surrounded by holographic displays that showed his homeworld of Valar Prime and its 2 colony planets. 3 worlds, population 63 million souls. All of them condemned if today's vote passed. The accusations had been brought by Supreme Chancellor Voth of the Draxian Empire. The Draxians were an old and powerful civilization, reptilian in appearance with bronze scales and eyes that burned like hot coals. They controlled 40 star systems and had a military fleet that could blockade entire sectors. When the Draxians spoke, the galaxy listened. Voth's voice boomed through the translation systems, his words reaching every species in their native languages. Honored members of the Assembly, we come before you with grave evidence. The Valar have been developing prohibited weaponry in violation of the Concordat of Peaceful Expansion. Our intelligence forces have intercepted communications detailing the construction of planet-destroying devices. We have testimony from 3 independent sources confirming this research. We have energy signatures from their orbital facilities that match weapon testing protocols. Holographic images appeared above the chamber floor, communications in Valar script, orbital facilities surrounded by defensive satellites, energy readings that spiked in suspicious patterns. To an untrained eye, it looked damning. Rachel had spent the last 3 weeks studying every piece of evidence with her team of analysts back on Earth. She knew what she was looking at, and she knew it was a lie. The communications were research papers about theoretical physics, specifically about gravitational manipulation for faster-than-light travel. The orbital facilities were astronomical observatories studying stellar formation. The energy signatures came from experiments in fusion power generation. Everything had been taken out of context, twisted to appear threatening. But Rachel also understood the real reason behind the accusations. The Valar system sat at a strategic crossroads between 3 major trade routes. Even more valuable, their asteroid belts contained massive deposits of iridium-7, a rare element essential for advanced computer systems. The Draxian Empire's own iridium supplies were nearly exhausted. They needed the Valar system, and galactic law prevented outright conquest unless a species was deemed an existential threat. This was genocide, dressed in legal procedure. Furthermore, Woth continued, his scales darkening with theatrical anger, The Valar have refused to allow our inspection teams access to their research facilities. This obstruction is itself evidence of guilt. What innocent species would refuse transparency? Ambassador Kelvin's voice shook as he responded, "We refused, because your inspection teams included military commanders and corporate executives from mining operations. This was not a neutral investigation, it was preparation for occupation. Our research is peaceful. Our culture abhors violence. We have never threatened anyone." "That is what every aggressor claims before they strike," Voth shot back. "The Assembly exists to prevent galactic catastrophes. We cannot wait until the Valar unleash their weapons. We must act now, while we still can. I invoke Resolution 47, the Preemptive Protection Protocol. I call for a vote on the complete sterilization of Valar-controlled space to eliminate this threat before it can manifest." The chamber erupted in translated voices. Some species objected to the harsh language, but most remained silent. The Draxians had spent years building alliances, offering favorable trade deals and military protection. They had votes secured before this session even began. The Assembly chairwoman, a being of pure energy named Luminara, called for order. Her voice resonated directly in the minds of all present. The vote is called. Resolution 47, authorizing the complete sterilization of Valar Prime, Valar Secondary, and Valar Tertiary, under the Preemptive Protection Protocol. Each delegation will now register their decision. Rachel's hands were shaking as she activated Earth's voting panel. Around the chamber, lights began appearing above each delegation pod. Green for approval, red for rejection. One by one, the votes were cast. The Korthan Collective voted green. The Asari Federation voted green. The Mechanical Concordat voted green. Species after species, civilizations that claimed to value justice and peace, voted to exterminate 63 million innocent beings. Some looked uncomfortable. A few delegates closed their eyes as they voted, but they voted green nonetheless. Rachel pressed the red rejection button with both hands, as if the pressure could somehow make her vote count for more. Earth's light shone red in the vast chamber, a single point of dissent in a sea of approval. When the final count appeared on the central display, the numbers were brutal. 73 civilizations voted for extermination, 1 voted against. Earth stood alone. Ambassador Kelvin's skin had gone completely gray, a Valar sign of devastating grief. His 4 arms hung limply at his sides. Around the chamber, delegates began filing out, some quickly as if ashamed, others slowly with heads bowed. The vote was final. The Valar had 30 days to evacuate any worlds they controlled, after which the Draxian fleet would begin bombardment. Rachel stood, her heart pounding with rage and determination. She activated her communication channel, ensuring her words would be recorded in the official assembly records. "Let it be known that Earth does not recognize this vote as legitimate. This is not justice, this is murder for profit. The evidence is fabricated, the procedure is corrupted, and the outcome is monstrous." Supreme Chancellor Voth turned toward her, his burning eyes filled with contempt. "Commander Morrison, your species has been part of this assembly for less than 50 years. You do not understand galactic realities. Sometimes, hard decisions must be made for the greater good." "I understand perfectly," Rachel replied, her voice cold and clear. "I understand that 73 civilizations just chose convenience over conscience, but Earth chooses differently. We hereby offer immediate asylum to any Valar citizen who can reach human-controlled space. We will grant them full citizenship, full protection under our laws, and we will defend them as if they were born on Earth itself." The remaining delegates turned to stare at her. Several made sounds that translated as laughter or disbelief. The Draxians had the 4th largest military force in the galaxy. Earth had a modest defense fleet designed for patrol and exploration, not warfare. This was suicide.
Voth's laugh was a deep rumbling sound. "Commander, your bravado is noted and will be remembered as a footnote in Earth's brief history. The Valar will be destroyed. Anyone harboring them will share their fate. You cannot stand against the assembled will of the galaxy." Rachel met his burning gaze without flinching. "Watch us," she said. She closed the channel and turned to Ambassador Kelvin, who stood frozen in the speaking circle. Rachel approached him, her steps echoing in the nearly empty chamber. When she reached him, she extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting and solidarity. "Ambassador Kelvin, my government has authorized me to provide immediate transport for any Valar refugees who wish to seek asylum on Earth. We have colony worlds with space for your people. We have resources to help you rebuild. And we have a military."
The stand at the border. The refugee fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of human-controlled space on a cold morning, measured by Earth Standard Time. The 17-day journey had been grueling. 3 Valar had died from stress-related complications. Dozens more were suffering from malnutrition because the emergency rations on the old ships hadn't been properly stocked. Children cried in the cramped compartments. Adults sat in silence, processing the reality that everything they had known was gone. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UENS Defiance, humanity's flagship carrier, watching the Valar vessels appear on his tactical display. He was a career military officer, 58 years old, with gray hair cut military short and a face weathered by decades of service. He had fought in the Colony Independence War and the Titan Rebellion. He had seen combat, lost friends, made the hard calls that kept people alive. But he had never faced anything like what was coming. Behind the refugee ships, his sensors detected something else: shadow contacts, just at the edge of detection range. The Draxian fleet had followed the Valar across the galaxy, waiting to see if Earth would truly honor its commitment. Admiral Marcus Webb smiled grimly. They were about to find out. "Communications, open a channel to the refugee fleet," he ordered. "All frequencies, all languages, let's welcome these people home." The message went out in Valar, translated by human linguists who had worked frantically for 17 days to learn the language. "Valar vessels, this is Admiral Marcus Webb of the United Earth Naval Service. You have reached human space. You are safe now. We're sending escort ships to guide you to New Horizons Station. Welcome to Earth." On the lead refugee ship, Ambassador Kelvin heard the message and felt his skin shift to a pale green, a color his species associated with relief and gratitude. Around him, Valar refugees began to weep, some from exhaustion, others from the overwhelming emotion of survival. They had made it. Against all probability, they had crossed the galaxy and found sanctuary. The human escort ships were smaller than the massive Draxian cruisers that had patrolled Valar space, but they moved with precision and purpose. 12 destroyers and 4 cruisers formed a protective formation around the refugee fleet, guiding them toward a massive orbital station that hung in space like a steel flower. New Horizons Station had been constructed in just 16 days, a rushed effort by human engineers working in shifts around the clock. It wasn't elegant, but it was functional. Docking bays for the refugee ships, medical facilities staffed by human doctors who had studied Valar physiology from the limited data available, temporary housing units, food synthesizers programmed with Valar nutritional requirements, everything the refugees would need for their first days in human space. As the ships docked, human volunteers waited at every airlock. They held signs written in Valar script, messages of welcome and support. Some wore translation devices. Others had learned simple Valar phrases. "You are safe. We are honored to help. Welcome home." The first Valar to step off the ships were the children, wide-eyed and frightened, clinging to their parents' hands. Human volunteers knelt down to their level, offering small gifts, toys, sweet foods, colorful drawings made by human children. The universal language of kindness needed no translation. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the chief medical officer for the refugee operation, moved through the crowds with her team, identifying those who needed immediate care. She was a tall woman from Lagos, a specialist in xenobiology who had published 3 papers on cross-species medicine.
Now all her theoretical knowledge was being put to practical use. We have 17 critical cases: malnutrition, dehydration, stress-induced cardiac issues in the elderly. Nothing we can't handle, but they were cutting it close. Another week in those ships, and we would have lost more. Get them whatever they need, Webb replied. Spare no expense. Earth wants these people healthy and safe. For 3 days, there was peace. The Valar refugees settled into their temporary housing. Human volunteers worked tirelessly to help them adjust, teaching them about Earth customs, showing them images of the colony worlds where they would eventually settle, assuring them that they had a future. Valar children began to smile again. Adults started to hope. Ambassador Kelvin met with Commander Rachel Morrison in a conference room aboard New Horizons Station. Through the viewport, they could see Earth in the distance, a blue and white marble hanging in the darkness, the homeworld of the species that had saved his people. I need to understand something, Kelvin said, his skin shifting between colors as he struggled with his emotions. Your species barely knows us. We have no strategic value to you. You cannot offer you anything that would justify the risk you have taken. Why did you really do this? Rachel was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. Ambassador, my species has a dark history. We've done terrible things to each other. Wars, genocides, enslavement. For thousands of years, we hurt each other because of differences in skin color, religion, nationality, ideology. We nearly destroyed ourselves. But eventually we learned. We decided that certain principles were more important than safety or profit or convenience. She gestured toward Earth. We wrote those principles into our Constitution when we formed the United Earth Government. The first principle is simple. Genocide is always wrong. No exceptions. No justifications. When we see it happening, we act. Because if we don't, if we stand by and watch innocent beings die, then all our talk about justice and human rights means nothing. Kelvin's forearms moved in a gesture that Rachel had learned meant profound respect. Your species is either the bravest or the most foolish I have ever encountered. Possibly both, Rachel smiled. We've been called worse. The peace ended on the 4th day. Supreme Chancellor Voth's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the border of human space with overwhelming force. 3,000 warships, drawn from the Draxian Empire and 20 dozen allied species, dreadnoughts the size of small cities, carriers bristling with fighter craft, cruisers equipped with weapons that could turn atmosphere into fire and ocean into steam, the assembled might of civilizations that had conquered star systems and toppled empires. And against them, humanity had assembled its entire military force. 437 ships. Every capital ship Earth possessed, pulled from patrol duty, system defense, and colonial protection. The human fleet looked tiny compared to the armada facing them, but Admiral Webb had positioned them carefully, using the asteroid field at the edge of the system for cover and positioning defense platforms at strategic points. Voth's message arrived on all frequencies, his voice filled with contempt. Admiral Webb, this is Supreme Chancellor Voth of the Draxian Empire, commanding the Galactic Enforcement Fleet. You are harboring fugitives from lawful galactic decree. You have violated the Assembly's decision and threatened galactic security. Surrender the Valar refugees immediately or face the consequences. You have 6 hours to comply. Admiral Webb sat in his command chair, surrounded by holographic displays showing enemy positions, fleet status, and tactical options. His officers watched him, waiting for orders. Every person on that bridge knew the odds. 7-1. Maybe worse. This was the kind of battle that got written about in history books, assuming anyone survived to write them. Communications, open a channel to the Draxian fleet, he ordered. Audio only. Let's not give them a target to analyze. The channel opened. Chancellor Voth, this is Admiral Marcus Webb of the United Earth Naval Service. The beings you call fugitives are now citizens of Earth under the full protection of human law. We don't recognize your authority over them. We don't recognize the Assembly's vote as legitimate. And we sure as hell don't recognize your right to commit genocide. Admiral, do you see what stands before you? Voth's voice dripped with condescension. 3,000 warships, the combined military might of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Your fleet is impressive for such a young species, but you are hopelessly outnumbered. This is not courage. This is suicide. Maybe, Webb acknowledged. But here's what you need to understand about humanity, Chancellor. We don't abandon our people. Not for convenience, not for safety, not even when the odds are impossible. You want those refugees? You're going to have to go through us. Every last ship, every last sailor. We'll make you pay for every meter of space. He paused, then added with grim humor. Besides, you're forgetting something important. Humans don't fight fair. Voth's laugh was a harsh sound. Your bravado is noted, Admiral. It will be remembered as the last words of a doomed species. You have 6 hours. Use them to pray to whatever gods you believe in. The channel closed. Webb turned to his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park, a brilliant strategist who had been modeling this exact scenario for 17 days. Commander Park, execute contingency theta. Let's show these bastards why you don't pick fights with humans. What the Draxian fleet didn't know, what no species in the galaxy understood, was that humanity had spent its entire history fighting against impossible odds. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had developed warfare into an art form during thousands of years of constant conflict. Every military doctrine, every tactical innovation, every strategic principle had been paid for in human blood. And humanity had learned one crucial lesson. When you can't win through strength, you win through deception, innovation, and sheer refusal to quit. The human fleet began moving, but not in the defensive formation Voth expected. Instead, they scattered, breaking into small groups that dove into the asteroid field. The Draxian commanders watched with confusion.